Bueno, buenos días. Bienvenidos a Español Intermedio 2. We're going to start a new course, Spanish 222, and we're going to start straight from with chapter 7, capítulo 7 in our book. And we're going to cover this first day, we're going to cover just a couple of things. Capítulo 7 se llama Bienvenidos a mi comunidad. And this second half of the book is going to be going into more detail about the topics that we covered in the first half. We already talked about different places around town, and we're going to be a little more specific with more specific places and items you find inside stores. So that's in the vocabulary section. In the structures, we're going to do a very brief review of when to use ser and when to use estar. You know that they're not interchangeable. You need to know when to use one and when to use the other. We're also going to look at the subjunctive again. In this case, we're going to look at the subjunctive in adverbial clauses. I'm going to see what that is. Some items inside stores, and we're going to do a review of the present progressive tense, which is a tense that we use to talk about something that is in progress or that is happening at the moment. And we're going to also look at progressive tenses, which are used to refer to ongoing actions. And we saw a little bit of that with the imperfect in 221. So we're going to review the imperfect and then other verbs like andar, continuar, seguir, ir, and venir, which are used in expressions to refer to ongoing actions. Okay? Muy bien. So we're going to go ahead and start with the vocabulary for the first section of vocabulary. And if you go to the back of your book in Apéndice 2, you can look at more basic vocabulary for places around town if you want to refresh your memory on that. So let's start here at the top. Algunas tiendas y algunos lugares en la ciudad. Tiendas is the word for stores in general. Okay. Tiendas y lugares en la ciudad. So I'm going to start here on top. La catedral, the cathedral, which is not just any church, it's a cathedral, la catedral, la fábrica, the factory, la fuente, the fountain, el campo de golf, the golf court or field or whatever it's called, the golf, what's it called? I can't remember what we call it in English, the golf, yeah, court or field. Okay. El consultorio, the doctor's office. You see there, Dr. Perez, so that's a doctor's office. Yeah, the golf course, that's what it is, golf course. El consultorio, the doctor's office. La mezquita is the mosque, that's another kind of church building. Tenemos la catedral y la mezquita, the mosque. La frutería, the fruit store. La heladería, the ice cream store. La tintorería, tintorería is a dry cleaners. La pescadería, fish store. In Latin America, it's very common to have stores like that, separated, not all in one store. It's very common to go around the neighborhood and buy the bread in one place, the fish in another place, the meat in another place, the fruit in another place, like that. La tintorería, la tintorería, the dry cleaners. La pescadería, la pescadería, the fish store. Los servicios, these are public restrooms, and you can also say baños, baños públicos, públicos. Los servicios, let's go over here to the left. La farmacia, the pharmacy. La ferretería, the hardware store. La zapatería, the shoe store. La tienda de ropa, La tienda de ropa, the clothing store. Okay. Muy bien. Vamos a bajar un poco. Okay. Just a few more here. La carnicería, the meat store, the butcher. La juguetería, the toy store. La juguetería, toy store. La pastelería, the pastry shop. La panadería, bakery. Y la papelería. La papelería would be something like a stationery shop or a place where they sell all kinds of different kinds of paper. Okay? Muy bien. You have noticed, you have a note here, that the suffix ería means a place where something is sold. Okay, so if a place sells pan, panadería. Okay, panadería. Or flores, florería. Or zapatos, zapatería. Okay, so the ería ending refers to a place where a certain kind of thing is sold. Okay, muy bien. Vamos a ir a la página siguiente entonces. Here we have a few more words. Para comprar cosas, to buy things. Para comprar cosas. The store clerk could be a man or a woman. If it's a man, it will be el dependiente, o la dependiente if it's a woman. El dependiente o la dependiente, o la dependienta. Okay. Cash, el dinero en efectivo. El dinero en efectivo. The store window, el escaparate, and that is a word that can change depending on where you are. A common word for store window is vidriera. Vidriera. La vidriera. Store window. La ganga is the bargain. La liquidación, it's a clearance sale, la liquidación. El mostrador, the counter. La oferta, well, here it says offer, but to me, oferta is a sale. When something is on sale, you will see, if you go to a store in like a Spanish-speaking neighborhood or a place where they have signs in Spanish, you're going to see the sign oferta. Okay. Okay. So that to me is oferta is something that is on sale, that has reduced price. Liquidación is when it's clearance, it's really low price. But oferta is a lower price, something that is on sale. La rebaja could be a sale or a discount. Okay, a discount. See? Muy bien. Okay, so now we're going to review a little bit. When we talk about different places around town and you describe these places, we are going to use ser and estar. Ser to describe the location, to describe the estar to describe the location, and ser to describe the characteristics of these places. So if we go to back here in the book to Appendix A and page 21, that's where you have a review of ser and estar. So we're going to do a quick review here because I know that you probably know these things very well. Muy bien, entonces, ¿cuándo usamos ser y cuándo usamos estar? Ser is used to describe physical or personality traits that remain relatively constant. Eye color, height, and for example, somebody is shy or outgoing. Those are things that remain relatively constant. So, por ejemplo, Gregorio es inteligente, Janina es guapa, su tienda de campaña es amarilla. Okay, to talk about color, personality traits, or physical traits that remain constant. To explain what or who someone or something is. If you're a teacher or a professor, if this is my Spanish book, okay, we use ser. El doctor Suárez es profesor. Marisol es mi hermana. Okay. Esta es mi computadora. Esos son los libros de ellos. Okay. To explain what or who someone or something is. The nature of something or someone. Okay. Muy bien. Bajemos un poco. Also, to tell the time, every time you tell time, you're going to use the verb ser. Or to tell when or where an event takes place. When or where an event takes place. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 10:30, por ejemplo. Son las 8. Mi clase de español es a las 8 y es en Peabody Hall. Okay, es. And I know that this could be taken as location. And when we talk about location, we use estar. But here we talk about where an event is taking place. When we talk about an event that is taking place somewhere, we use ser. Okay? To tell where someone is from and to express nationality. Okay? Somos de Honduras o somos hondureños. Where from, okay, and nationality. Ellos son de Guatemala, ellos son guatemaltecos. ¿Ok? Muy bien. Continuamos. La próxima página. And estar. When do we use estar? Estar is used to describe physical or personality traits that can change or that indicate a change in condition. Okay? When you talk about how you're feeling today, it's something that, today you feel this way, but it's not constant. So, por ejemplo, María está enferma hoy. Jorge y Julia están tristes. La cocina está sucia. So these are things that can change very quickly, okay? María está enferma hoy. She wasn't sick yesterday, or she may not be sick tomorrow, but today she is. Okay, and then to describe the location of people or places. Okay, I already mentioned that when you talk about the location of where an event is taking place, we're going to use ser. But to describe the location of people or places in general, we use está. We're going to be talking about places around town and where they are, so we're going to use estar. El museo está en la calle Quiroga. Estamos en el centro comercial. ¿Dónde estás tú? Okay, every time we talk about location. ¿Sí? Muy bien, vamos a regresar entonces a el capítulo 7. I believe that was page 288, 288. And so you're going to be looking at your activities in My Spanish Lab to practice a little bit with your vocabulary and with using ser and estar. For example, this first activity here, you have people or objects, por ejemplo, dependiente, and the location, detrás del mostrador. So you're going to make complete sentences. El dependiente está detrás del mostrador. Okay? And different activities like that, and this is going to mark the end of día número 1. Entonces nos vemos pronto en el día número 2. Adiós. Bueno, hoy es el día número 2 y vamos a hablar del subjuntivo en cláusulas adverbiales. Okay? En cláusulas adverbiales, adverbial clauses. To express uncertainty, remember that the subjunctive always talks about something that is subjective from the point of view of the speaker. To express uncertainty in time, in place, manner, and purpose. Okay, so we have been using the subjunctive to express wishes and doubts and feelings and emotions. See? And we also used to talk about things and people that may or may not exist. Okay, so we are going to do a review of what a clause is. What is a clause? A clause is a group of words that has both a subject and a verb, and is used as a part of a sentence. Okay, So a clause can be either independent or the main clause if it's expressing a complete thought and if it makes sense standing on its own, or a dependent, or it's also called subordinate clause. It's a clause that doesn't make sense without another part of the sentence. Okay, so for example, you have I want to go to the bank. This is a main clause or independent because it makes sense by itself. But if I only say after we go to the movies, that is depending on another clause, on the main clause, because it doesn't make sense by itself. Okay, so the subjunctive is always 99% of the time going to be part of a complex clause, meaning that it has a main clause and a dependent clause, and the subjunctive is always going to be in the dependent clause. Okay, okay, muy bien. Bajamos un poquito. All right. The only case when the subjunctive is used and it's not a part of a complex compound clause is when you say ojalá que, okay? But most of the time it's going to be part of a dependent clause. So dependent clauses, the ones that depend on the main clause, usually begin with a word that we call conjunctions, okay? These are words that connect the two sentences, the dependent and the independent. Some conjunctions in English, for example, there are a lot, but for example, are that, before, after, etc. Okay. So now we're going to look at some words and phrases that may require the subjunctive when we talk about time, manner, place, and or purpose, which in all of these cases what we need is an adverb. Adverb of time, adverb of manner, adverb of place, or adverb of purpose. That's why it's called an adverbial clause. Okay? Okay. Muy bien. So the adverb answers a question how, or when, or where, or why. Okay? For example, tengo que ir al banco después. I have to go to the bank afterward. And so it answers the question when. Afterward is an adverb of time. Okay? Muy bien. So when you see these expressions, these phrases, you know that the subjunctive is always going to be used after these phrases, these conjunctions. When you see a menos que, unless, antes de que, and de is in parentheses because some people say antes de que and some people say antes que, and either one is fine. Antes que, before, con tal de que, provided that, en caso de que, in case, para que, so that, sin que, without. Okay, so these are all the expressions in English. When you see these, you know that the subjunctive has to follow. Okay, in these expressions in English, anything can follow that. Okay, any verb depending on the case. But when you see them in Spanish, so that's why it's important that you learn them. You know that you're going to have to use the subjunctive. A menos que, antes que, con tal de que. These always mark the subjunctive. Okay, so here we have some example. Nos veremos en el campo de golf a menos que llueva. Unless it rains. We'll see each other at the golf course unless it rains. See, in this case, we're using the future here, unless it rains, and the present. But when you see a menos que in Spanish, you have to use the subjunctive. Te voy a comprar el vestido con tal de que te lo pongas varias veces. Okay, con tal de que triggers the use of the subjunctive. Pasa por la tintorería en caso de que, in case, de que esté listo mi traje. Okay? Muy bien. So these expressions, you know when you see them, that after these expressions you need to use a subjunctive without an exception. Okay? Muy bien. That's the easy part. Now there are some other expressions that are conjunctions, okay? And but with these conjunctions, you need to use the indicative. And when I say indicative, I mean it can be the present or the past or the future, but in the indicative tense. Okay, so the indicative is always used after these phrases when they are followed by facts. Okay, and these expressions usually refer to facts. Ahora que, now that, puesto que, given that, and ya que, since or because. Okay, remember that when we say because someone did this, then something is going to happen. The temptation is to use the word porque, okay, in Spanish. But when you say because something happened or because you said this, we use ya que. Ya que, okay. But these three, when you see these three expressions, ahora que, puesto que, and ya que, they usually are followed by facts. So we're going to use the indicative mood, not the subjunctive. And here's some examples. David is very generous now that he has the job as a store clerk. So this is a fact. Entonces, David es muy generoso ahora que tiene el trabajo. Given that he is buying a new car, okay, so this is a fact, he's buying a new car. Puesto que va a comprar, this is the indicative, the future in the indicative. Puesto que va a comprar, okay, un carro nuevo, me va a regalar el viejo. My brother always brings me cakes since he works in a bakery. That's a fact. Mi hermano siempre me trae pasteles ya que trabaja en una pastelería. The indicative. See? Okay, so in these three cases, we're going to use the indicative mood. Okay. Now, here is the fun part. There are some phrases where you can use either the indicative or the subjunctive, and we're going to see how you know when to use which. But all of these can trigger either one. A pesar de que, in spite of, aun cuando, even when, aunque, although, or even if, cuando, when, de manera que, so that, or de modo que, they both mean the same thing. Después de que, after, en cuanto, as soon as, hasta que, until, luego que, as soon as, mientras que, while, y tan pronto como, y en cuanto, have the same meaning, as soon as. Okay, so how do we decide when to use the indicative or the subjunctive when we see these conjunctions that connect the two clauses? Okay, so to determine whether the subjunctive or the indicative is needed, you have to ask this question. From the point of view of the speaker, has the action already occurred? Okay, so the action has already occurred. If you answer yes, the action has already occurred, then we're going to use the indicative. If the answer is no, the action hasn't occurred yet, then we're going to use the subjunctive. Okay? And when one of the preceding adverbs of time, because these are all adverbs, right? When these adverbs are adverbs of time and the adverb expresses a completed or a habitual action, something that used to be an action, known to the speaker, it's clear that the action has already taken place. And so we use the indicative. Okay? Okay, so let's look at some examples here to make it a little more clear. Bien. Vamos a ir a la farmacia. So when you see vamos a ir, you already know that this is the future. So it hasn't occurred yet. Vamos a ir a la farmacia tan pronto como, and you know that if it hasn't occurred, you're going to use the subjunctive. Tan pronto como mi hermano salga del consultorio. ¿Sí? We will go to the pharmacy as soon as my brother leaves the doctor's office. Okay, vamos a ir a la farmacia tan pronto como mi hermano salga. From the speaker's point of view, the brother has not left the doctor's office yet. Now, fuimos a la farmacia. So fuimos is the past, so you know that it already occurred. Fuimos a la farmacia tan pronto como mi hermano salió del consultorio. So we went to the pharmacy as soon as my brother left. Okay, so the action has already occurred, so we use the indicative, the past indicative. From the speaker's point of view, yes, the brother has left the doctor's office already. Piensa trabajar en esa juguetería. So he's thinking about working there. So it hasn't occurred yet. Aunque no le gusten, subjunctive, los niños. Trabajó, okay, it has already occurred. Trabajó 6 meses en esa juguetería, aunque no le gustaban los niños. So this is the indicative. It's imperfect, but imperfect is an indicative mood, okay? Trabajó 6 meses, aunque no le gustaban los niños. And if you remember that the subjunctive is used when the subject in the main clause and the subject in the dependent clause are different. So in a sentence where the subjects are the same, with no change of subject, you should use any you should use any of these prepositions: antes de, después de, hasta, para, and sin, followed by the infinitive. So when we have a main clause and a dependent clause, and they're joined by these prepositions, and the subject in the main clause and the subject in the dependent clause are the same, we use the infinitive. The infinitive. So necesitamos, this is nosotros, right? Necesitamos pasar por el banco antes de salir, the infinitive, de viaje, because the subject here and the subject here are the same. We need to stop by the bank before we leave on the trip, okay? So in that case, you're going to use the infinitive after these prepositions. Necesitamos pasar por el banco antes de salir de viaje. Ayer salimos de la tienda sin pagar. Sin pagar. And remember that the ing, okay, in English is used as a noun, okay? In Spanish, the ando and yendo is never used as a noun, okay, without the verb to estar. All right, so in these cases, when the ing verb is used by itself, without the are, leaving, or is paying, it's going to be replaced by the infinitive in Spanish, not the ando or yendo, okay? The ando and yendo is a verb that refers to an action that is ongoing or that is in progress, okay? In English, it's used as a noun, okay? Before leaving or before or without paying and without the verb to be. But in Spanish, that does not happen. It's the infinitive, okay? All right, so you're going to complete the activities in my Spanish lab so that you can see this a little more in a more practical way. And also, as I always tell you, try to make your own sentences that make sense to you, to practice all these concepts so that this new concept stays in your long-term memory easier, okay? Muy bien, entonces aquí terminamos el día número 2 y vamos a comenzar. Ok, bueno, en el día número 3, I'd like you to take a look at notas culturales, la ropa como símbolo cultural, and remember that you can click up here in this speaker and you can listen to it read by a native speaker, and you can also practice reading out loud to practice your pronunciation, and read it slowly so you can concentrate on the different sounds of the letters, the consonants and the vowels, okay? And also in this reading there's a lot of subjunctive expressions and clauses, so you can also practice with reading, you know, how the subjunctive is used, okay? And of course, by the way, you're going to learn some cultural facts as well. So día 3, we're going to be looking at more vocabulary for what different things that you can find in a store, okay? Algunos artículos en las tiendas. Okay, entonces vamos a comenzar aquí arriba con el vocabulario. Tenemos la billetera, the wallet, la billetera, el anillo, the ring, el anillo, el tacón bajo o alto, the high heels, or lower heels in shoes, tacón bajo o tacón alto. El reloj de pulsera, the watch, el reloj de pulsera, el collar, the necklace, el collar, las pilas, batteries, las pilas, batteries. Batería, the word batería is used more for like the battery in a car, or the bigger kind of, bigger than just these kind of batteries. The little batteries that you put in you know, like in your in, I don't know, the TV control or something like that, are las pilas. Las tarjetas, the greeting cards, las tarjetas, el papel de envolver, the wrapping paper, el papel de envolver. La ropa interior, underwear, la ropa interior, la bufanda, the scarf, la bombilla, light bulb, el champú, well, shampoo, el talco, powder, el cepillo, the brush, the hairbrush, el cepillo, la loción, lotion, it can also be, loción can also be perfume, okay, el chicle, the gum, el chicle, gum, el jabón, soap, el jabón, la pasta de dientes, toothpaste, la pasta de dientes, el perfume, perfume, los aretes, earrings. I'm gonna go scroll down. Bien. La navaja de afeitar. La navaja de afeitar. That's the razor, but the little ones. And la máquina de afeitar is the razor, but it's more like the machine type thing. The electric, okay? Electric razor. La navaja de afeitar y la máquina de afeitar. La crema de afeitar, shaving cream. El desodorante, deodorant, el desodorante. El cepillo de dientes, toothbrush. La pulsera, the bracelet. You have reloj de pulsera, which is the watch you wear around your wrist. Y la pulsera is bracelet. El diamante, the diamond. El papel higiénico, toilet paper, el papel higiénico. El esmalte de uñas, de uñas. The nail polish. El pinta labios, lipstick. And I have also seen, I have seen it more like lápiz de labios. Lápiz de labios. Y la colonia, cologne, la colonia. ¿Sí? Muy bien. So that's the vocabulary for this page. We're going to go to the next page. Página 304. Algunas palabras útiles, otras palabras útiles. Apretado, to talk about clothes that fit, you know, tight. Apretado o apretada, if it's feminine. Apretado o apretada. De buena calidad o de mala calidad. Good quality or poor quality. It's an adjective. Okay, so de buena calidad is feminine, so buena calidad o mala calidad. La manga corta, short sleeve, y la manga larga. I don't know why that audio, let's see, let me get out of this and go back in again. Okay, la manga corta y la manga larga. Short sleeve and long sleeve. Manga is sleeve. Okay, la manga corta y la manga larga. Media manga, half sleeve. Media manga. Made of, some kind of material. Hecho de o hecha, if it's a feminine noun. Hecho de o hecha de. And we have here, por ejemplo, nylon, nylon. Oro, gold. Piel, it's leather or fur. Y plata, silver. Okay? Muy bien. So, practice your vocabulary with activities, and tomorrow we're going to be reviewing el presente progresivo. Entonces aquí terminamos con el día número 3. Adiós. Hola, bienvenidos al día número 4. Actually, this section of the videos, of the whole video, is going to be for both día 4 y día 5. I'm going to let you work on this for a couple of days, Thursday and Friday. The first thing we're going to do is review the present progressive, which you have already used extensively. El presente progresivo, okay? To refer to what is happening. So in English is the ing ending. In Spanish is the ando and yendo. Okay, so we're going to go to the appendix in the back, and I believe it's going to be page A23. A23. Vamos a repasar el presente progresivo. Okay, so the presente progresivo is used to emphasize that an action is occurring at the moment. An action that is occurring at the moment and is in progress. Okay, so in English we form the present progressive with a form of the verb to be. When we say a form, it means that the verb to be is the one that is conjugated for different persons, plus a present participle, which is going to be a verb ending in ing. Okay, in Spanish we're going to use estar, and this is the verb that is going to be conjugated for the different persons. In this case it's tú, in this case it's yo, in this place is él, etc. Okay, and then the verb in the present, I'm going to go down here a little bit. In the present participle. Okay, so estar plus the present participle, which means that it's going to be yendo or ando. So the adverbs are going to end in ando, and and ir are the ones that are going to end in yendo. Okay, so hacer is an so it's haciendo. Ensayar is an adverb, so ensayando. So the verb estar plus the present participle. ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? Estoy ensayando. ¿Está escuchando música tu hermano? No, está tocando la guitarra. Okay, so the verb estar plus the present participle, ando or yendo. And the ando and yendo are not going to change with the different persons. The one that is going to change is the verb estar. And of course, we always have irregular verbs in the present participle. Okay, creer, creyendo, leer, leyendo, ir, yendo, and you have all these irregulars that you need to take a look at. Okay, it's important that you know how to use the present participle with these irregular forms. Perseguir changes, persiguiendo. Repetir, repitiendo. Seguir, siguiendo. Sirviendo, durmiendo y muriendo. These are some of the irregulars. Okay, muy bien. Entonces vamos a volver ahora a la página 306, I believe it is. No, 307. Muy bien, los tiempos progresivos. So we're going to look at some of the progressive tenses. We looked at the imperfect in the first section of this course. El imperfecto, the ia and aba. Ella estaba, when you described what was happening, and when you worked on a story to describe the scenery, what the background of the story, and then as opposed to the preterite to describe the actions that happen in that background. So you know how to use the imperfect. So we're going to use the imperfect also to talk about ongoing actions, and we're going to use the imperfect with the verbs andar, continuar, seguir, ir y venir. Okay? Muy bien. So we just reviewed the present progressive, and that is formed with the verb estar plus ando and yendo. Okay? Now we're going to work with the imperfecto progresivo. Okay? Very similar in usage to the imperfect, and it's used to describe a past action in progress. So instead of using, for example, volvía or buscaba, okay, the ia and aba, we're going to combine it with the verb estar. So that's why it's going to be the imperfecto progresivo. Okay, so el imperfecto progresivo, we're going to use estar plus a verb in ando or yendo. The one that is going to be in the imperfect is going to be this one. So we're going to say estaba for yo, or tú estabas, or él estaba, nosotros estábamos. So the verb estar is the one that is going to be in the imperfect, and the second verb is going to be in ando or yendo. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Let's scroll down. When we use the imperfect versus the preterite, the imperfect was used in some cases to talk about something that was happening at the moment, and as opposed to something specific action that happened within that action. For example, we say, it was raining when he called. Okay, llovía cuando él llamó. Or when you describe scenes from the two movies, from the Harry Potter, for example, the students were waiting for the professor when she arrived. Los estudiantes esperaban a la profesora. Okay. We can also use in the same way to describe a past action in progress the imperfect progressive. Okay. Por ejemplo, lo vida would be the preterite, right? Lo vi cuando estábamos volviendo del centro. I saw him when we were returning from downtown. Okay. You could also say lo vi cuando volvíamos. That would be just the plain imperfect. Okay, but this refers, it's more specific, talking about an ongoing action. Lo vi cuando estábamos volviendo. I saw him when we were returning from downtown. Where returning referred to either the imperfect or the imperfect progressive, okay, like we saw before. Okay. Chan estaba mirando los relojes de pulsera cuando llamaste. So see, the estar is the one that is in the imperfect, and the other verb is going to be ando or yendo. Chan was looking at the wristwatches when you called. We could also say Chan miraba. He was looking, it's the same thing. Chan miraba los relojes cuando llamaste. O Chan estaba mirando los relojes cuando llamaste. This imperfect progressive is more specific, referring to a past action that is in progress. Okay? ¿Te estabas maquillando cuando el niño entró? ¿Te estabas maquillando cuando el niño entró? Were you putting on your makeup? We could also say te maquillabas cuando el niño entró. But this is very, very specifically an ongoing action in the past. Él estaba buscando muebles en el almacén. He was looking for furniture at the department store. Was looking. Okay. We could also say él buscaba. Él buscaba muebles en el almacén. But the imperfect, the plain imperfect, is not as specific as the imperfect progressive when you want to refer to something that was in progress. Okay. Okay, muy bien. So that's with the imperfect progressive. Now let's look at how we use the other verbs that are here. Andar, continuar, ir, etc. Okay? So these are all verbs that we're going to use with the present participle, ando o yendo. Okay. The use of each of these verbs, andar and continuar, ir, venir, okay, the use of these verbs subtly changes the meaning of the progressive. There's a change in the meaning, a very subtle change, okay? So andar, the verb andar plus the present participle. This expression implies that the action in progress is not occurring in an organized fashion. For example, if you say the new sales clerk is going around looking for the garments all over the place, it's not something organized. El dependiente nuevo anda buscando las prendas por todas partes. So the andar is going to be used in the indicative form, okay? Anda buscando las prendas por todas partes. This could also be in the past. We could say the new sales clerk was going around, andaba buscando las prendas por todas partes, okay? But anda, it means something that anda plus present participle is used to talk about an action that is not occurring in an organized fashion. Anda buscando. Now, continuar or seguir plus the present participle. This means to keep on or to continue doing something. For example, we're still looking for the ring my mother lost this morning. Seguimos, we continue to look for it. Seguimos buscando el anillo que mi madre perdió esta mañana. Seguimos buscando. Now, ir plus a present participle emphasizes a progress toward a goal. Okay, the workers are making progress on the construction of our new hardware store. Los obreros van avanzando en la construcción de nuestra ferretería nueva. Okay, van avanzando. To talk about making progress toward a goal. And then venir plus the present participle emphasizes the repeated or uninterrupted nature of an action over a period of time. For example, for 2 years my brothers have been doing the same aggravating things. Hace 2 años que mis hermanos vienen haciendo las mismas cosas molestas. Okay, so it's something that is repeatedly being done or in an uninterrupted nature of an action over a period of time. Remember the expressions hace plus a specific time, hace 2 años, for 2 years, mis hermanos vienen haciendo las mismas cosas molestas. Okay? Okay, so remember something very important. In Spanish, the present progressive is never, ever used to express future like it is in English. You say, this weekend, I'm studying for the test. Okay, in Spanish, the present progressive is only used to talk about something that is in progress right now. Never, ever, ever to express the future. Okay, están trabajando en la tintorería means that they're working right now. Okay, if you want to talk about the future, you're going to use the future form. Van a, ir plus a plus the verb. But never use the ando and yendo tense to talk about the future. Okay, if you say están trabajando en la tintorería, that does not mean the future. It means right now. Okay, not in the future. See? Muy bien. Okay, so we are going to end here, and I'm going to give you today and tomorrow to work with these expressions so you can get the hang of them. Okay? Muy bien, entonces hasta la semana que viene. Adiós.